It's time for Talking Sports, Birmingham's only weekly sports update to put you in the game. Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Now, here is your winning action host, Keefer, and the legend.
Welcome, everybody. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Some people might think that's about a month premature, but I don't believe so. This is the ultimate week, and we are delighted to have you on the show, Talking Sports, right here on ABC 3340. And look who's in the house, everybody.
Back again.
I mean,
I'm like a bad penny. I keep coming back.
Such a youthful guy. How can this be the founding father of modern-day sports in this town that he is? But that's certainly his role. I've said it before. If we had a Birmingham broadcasting sports icon, Mount Rushmore, this guy has the George Washington position. It's Herb Winches. Welcome to the show, Herb. We are always thrilled to have you.
Glad to be back for another turn. And I will tell you, the reason I think you've invited me back, it'll make you a legend if you can give out perfect picks and people win cash. They always seem to like you because, see, cash is king.
You know, in case you missed it, and if you did, shame on you because you could have more money in your wallet for a bigger Thanksgiving feast. Herb was with us about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He gave you the winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic, who went off at 5-1, Vino Rosso, and he gave you the Winch Cinch, which is the closest thing to death and taxes as a sure thing in the world. He gave you Wake Forest. He gave you Tennessee. They both won easily. It was a laugher, Herb, and you cashed all the way to the bank.
And I had UAB not covering.
You did.
3-0. But anyway, let's move on to this. This is the week that counts. It's rivalry week.
That's for sure. We're brought to you by Birmingham Greyhound Racing. Everybody realizes that. The Birmingham Greyhound Racing operation is now multifaceted. Not only do you have the excitement of live racing and great simulcast racing from all over the country that's brought in via satellite, and you can watch, wager, and win on that. You've got the Sports Parlay Contest, which is blowing up and one of the most popular attractions in town. And now the gaming floor, the gaming machines are in place, a unique way to present racing results in the form of basically casino-style machines. People are loving it, Herb. The race course has always been the action capital of the South, and now more than ever.
Well, the historical racing machines, I understand they're off to a great start. It's all you got to do is put your money in, and then it automatically does everything for you. And I like that, and I like the noise too.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. So if you haven't been out, we are actually open all weekend. By the way, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope everybody had a great day of turkey, and now you're settled in for football. We got to talk about football, Herb, because Thanksgiving weekend is always highlighted by the matchup between our state's big teams, Alabama and Auburn, and this year's has tremendous significance.
Well, it truly does. It's always important in this state to all of us, but none any more important than this year. And you look at the history between these two teams, especially since they started alternating one campus to the other. Auburn has had a lot of success on their own campus, and there's really a lot of pressure, I think, on both teams. And we'll discuss that as we go into it a little bit, but a lot on Alabama because as the college football rankings came out on Tuesday, about what we anticipated, Alabama stayed in 5. We only had one major change among the top 5, and that is Ohio State leapfrogged because they played a tougher team.
That's right.
Penn State was higher ranked at 8th at the time, and of course we saw what Alabama was doing and LSU playing Arkansas and Auburn. Everybody had an easy game, so to speak, in the SEC.
By the way, last week on the show, I did my annual whine about how stupid the next to last week of the season is, the cupcake weekend.
Yeah.
The final score in those 5 matchups against FBS teams, Herb, 251-10. I mean, enough already. But let's schedule some real games.
Well, the tragedy of it, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a season ticket holder, you deserve better.
Absolutely.
And Alabama, with their schedule, it's really come back to bite them. Their schedule, other than LSU this year, Texas A&M maybe, but I want to tell you something, and I know those schedules are made years in advance, but it's really hurt them.
That's right.
They're going to need a repeat of what happened in 2017 with one loss to get back in to the championship four.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Iron Bowl. I mean, you go back in your career here in this state, certainly as the by far most recognizable sportscaster, then for a long period of time, the father of modern day sports talk here. I know you have attended many Iron Bowl games. What comes to mind when I say the words Iron Bowl, and what is your most vivid memory of the game?
Well, pageantry always comes to mind because the environment is something very, very special, whether it's in Tuscaloosa or at Auburn. It's just something that is so unique. It divides families for this weekend. You've got mixed marriages. You've got a little bit of everything. But what comes to mind is the great days. When I first started out as a young broadcaster, I was fortunate enough to work around and with Coach Paul Bear Bryant, whom I had so much respect for. And, of course, in those days, he pretty much dominated this series because it was always played annually out at Legion Field. And then in '89, things changed. Pat Dye did a great job in bringing that to the Plains as well as over to the Tuscaloosa. To me, college football, even though I love Birmingham and I've been a resident here for more years than I care to remember, football should be played on the campuses. And I'm glad that it's there and the tradition continues. And I think we're in for a really, really fascinating ball game because you got Auburn with a great defense. Arguably, I think Auburn has got the best defense they've had in some 20, 25 years on the Plains. Offense, not so much. They struggle. And then you take Alabama, even though they lose Tua, you got Mac Jones stepping in. We know they've got four of the greatest wide receivers maybe in the history of college football on one team. So you got offense against a great defense. Go figure it out.
It's going to be a fantastic game. We're going to break it down in our next segment. It's the Iron Bowl special. It's Thanksgiving weekend. This is a great time to be around, and we are going to continue this right after this short time out. Welcome back to Talking Sports, everybody. Kip Keefer, special guest host, the legendary Herb Winches. This segment brought to you by Chemco, the most valuable player in terms of versatility. If you have a business, a plant, any kind of needs in terms of anything in the maintenance area, in repairs, Chemco is the go-to guys. Give them a call. They are a family-owned company. Herb said he actually used them in his restaurant down on Lake Martin.
I have several times when my walk-in cooler freezer goes out.
There you go.
That's when you need them.
Chemco can do it all. Give them a call. We're proud to have them as a sponsor. Herb, you know, I think about Charles Dickens, the great writer. It's the best of times. It's the worst of times. This is the best weekend of the year for college football, in my opinion. But it's also sad because it's the last weekend of the season already.
It's ending. Now, we do have bowl games,
right.
and we got the championship playoffs coming up.
Yeah.
But again, you're right. The regular season comes to conclusion. But it's a great weekend because there's so many wonderful rivalries, and so much is at stake.
Well, let's talk about the Iron Bowl, specifically the matchups here. Who would have thought, Herb, coming into this game, that the most experienced quarterback on the field would be freshman Bo Nix? But that's how it's worked out.
Well, it has, and you just saw the number right now. I've seen it as much in some of the sports books at 4. I don't think it'll go any higher than that because, obviously, a great quarterback is not going to play, and that's Tua Tagovailoa. And I just think that that's going to make a difference. And I would have said this even if Tua would have been in the lineup, that going up against this defense and like I said, I would say arguably in the history, I've been covering football in this state for a long time, this is the best defense I've ever seen. Kevin Steele, hats off to him and the job he's done. They got their work cut out, and here's the way I break it down. This is a great front seven. I mean, it's just hard to penetrate. I think Alabama's game plan, knowing Nick Saban as we do, he's not going to put more on Mac Jones than he can deliver. And by that, I mean, I look for some dinks and dumps, some jet sweeps. I look for some screens. I look for some bubble screens, some way to get these great wide receivers in space. And once they get in space, as you saw, if you saw a little bit of the Western Carolina game, it's good night, sweet prince, because they have so much outstanding speed. And that's what I think Mac Jones is going to do. Dump it out, right side, left side, dump it across the middle, and then hope their speed beats their young defensive secondary. And that's Alabama's Achilles heel. They have a young defensive secondary.
Yes.
And that's the only way I think they can penetrate the Auburn defense.
You know, Najee Harris has been emphasized a lot in recent weeks. He's a primetime back. I think they may have gotten away from him a little bit with the pass-happy first part of the year. But Georgia actually established a little bit of a running game with DeAndre Swift. Najee Harris, I think, again, to take a lot of the pressure off of Mac Jones, I think you're going to see a lot of Najee Harris in this game. Maybe not just running right up the gut, but a lot of screens, Najee Harris has shown he is a versatile player. and I think he's one of the primetime guys on the field.
Well, you want to use him because he is another one of those lines of great running backs at the University of Alabama. And the reason you want to use him to do that is to be able to set up these screens. And I do think they're going to have to stretch the field a little bit. They're going to have to go downfield some just to keep that defense honest. So that's my thought there. If you look at the other side of it, you talk about Bo Nix. Even though, I got to tell you, I was really perplexed when they lost to Georgia 2 weeks ago, and Gus Malzahn had the audacity to say, we're still an offense work in progress.
Yeah, come on.
Come on.
It's been 11 games.
Where were you in the spring? Where were you in the fall? You're the offensive coordinator. You're the head coach. The buck stops there, Gus. And that was, I thought, one of the most misused phrases I've ever heard any coach say, that we're still a work in progress on offense. Are you kidding me? So, from a coaching angle, let's be honest here. Nick Saban is a better coach than Gus Malzahn.
Oh, you don't question.
Now, who's had the better schedule, the tougher schedule?
Auburn,
it's obviously
by
been
far.
Auburn. You know, you talk about Florida, LSU, Georgia, these teams they've lost to. Let me tell you something. These are all top 10 teams, top tier teams. So I think it balances out. Now, let's go to playing at home. Auburn, you look at the last 11 games. I'm going to move from like 07, 08 up to now. In the last 11 games, Alabama has dominated 8 out of the 11. By dominate, I just mean win. They have won, no matter if it's been at Auburn or it's been played in Tuscaloosa. However, of those 11, the 3 wins that Auburn has, where did they take place? At Jordan-Hare.
Absolutely, including legendary ones like the kick six.
Yes.
And of course the great win a couple of years ago that Auburn won the division and got to the SEC championship. It's going to be an interesting game in terms of, I think, to validate what Herb just said. Look at Auburn's effort at LSU. By far the best defense LSU's played, and Auburn held them to 23 points and lost a close game. So if you're really kind of looking for big hope for Auburn, it's that defense. And let's face it, the Alabama defense is not what we're used to.
No.
They had crippling injuries. We only got about 30 seconds. We got to go on record. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think, as I said, I think that the advantage this week, that is if they do the coaching staff. I know Kevin Steele to do his job. If Gus can find a secret to break through, I think that Auburn catching 4 at home, I think it's going to be a very, very close game. Again, so much is on line. You can say for Alabama because they want to continue that trek to get into the playoff. So how will they handle the pressure? How will Mac Jones handle it, the big stage? We're going to see that. On the other side, with Auburn, we're going to see that their defense is going to have to keep them in this ball game. I don't see it as a high-scoring game, but saying all that, I think Alabama has a slight edge because there's a lot riding on this game.
Boy, a lot on the line.
You can say there's a lot riding on Gus Malzahn because what is his future at Auburn? If he loses here, that puts him at 8-4. And I think the Auburn folks are a little tired of those 8-4 and those 7-5 records.
Yeah, he's making too much money to go 8-4.
But I'll lean to Alabama.
Okay, we'll be back in just a minute. I'll give you my pick, and we'll continue looking at the college football playoff games and the implications today on the schedule. It's Talking Sports. Kip and Herb Winches. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. You're watching Talking Sports, getting you ready for Rivalry Saturday. Oh, it just doesn't get any better than this, Herb.
Nope, it doesn't.
I love it. We're going to talk about some of the major matchups. Most of them are big rivalry games that are very critical to the playoff situation. Before we do that, I got to tell you this segment is brought to you by Crane Works. If you have any kind of needs for construction or any big or small projects, this is the company. They are not only known throughout Alabama, but nationwide, a tremendous provider. And, last week, Herb, I was laughing. We had Tony Curry on the show last week. Mm-hmm. And Tony, well, by the way, Tony says that you and he need to come on and tell some revealing stories about some of your Olympic experiences.
Well, we went to Barcelona together, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and Lillehammer, I understand.
Yeah, we've done Lillehammer, too.
So anyway, but, just like you gave us the great segue on Chemco that you've used them, Tony goes, I've used Crane Works. I hung Christmas lights 70 feet high in my trees. So that was an interesting usage. But again, this is the company that you can call on to do anything you need. Give them a call today, Crane Works, who has been just a great supporter of sports in Alabama for many years.
I'll do a little name dropping. David Upton is
Yes.
a dear friend of mine and does a terrific job. His whole family, the Upton family, they've been a part of Birmingham and the business scene for a long time. So hope you have a great holiday season there, David.
Herb, let's get into the big rivalry games today, and it starts, although when I did the slate here, I had them upside down. They kind of threw me a curveball by putting LSU on top, and I didn't call him to change it. But let's start with Ohio State, so we'll jump down. Of course, a lot of people up there argue that this is the greatest rivalry game in the country, and I guess that has some merit. Alabama folks don't like to hear that. They're not even in the same state. But Ohio State-Michigan is always just a game of tremendous magnitude, and this year it has huge implications because Michigan, an 8 or 9 point underdog at home, hasn't beaten Ohio State in a while, and this team has really come on in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's like 9 straight that Ohio State has won, so they certainly got the work cut out. Nobody's playing any better football right now than the Wolverines under Jim Harbaugh. And the fact that they're a 9 point underdog at the Big House tells me a lot. Now, I had the pleasure of attending my first
You went to the Ohio State game last week?
I went to Ohio State, Penn State, and I saw that Ohio State was a little bit human. They made some mistakes. Justin Field, as great as he's been, he fumbled going in for a score right where I was sitting. And that disturbed me a little bit, but then I'm thinking, well, you know, their mind is thinking about this next game. And they don't need to look ahead any further because this is the Mac Daddy of them all. The Big House, there will be 110,000. By the way, they had 105 at Ohio State at the shoe. But I'll tell you, that's a lot of points. But if Ohio State does what they usually do, and I'm talking about their offense and Michigan can't catch up, if Ohio State gets out early, I think they cover that number. But it's going to be a dandy and a lot riding on that one.
Remember, the shoe was on the other foot last year. Michigan was number 2 or 3 in the poll, went into Ohio State and just got wiped out and ruined everything.
62 to something, whatever.
Terrible. All right, let's talk about LSU Texas A&M real quick. That line is 17. I thought that was interesting. They were only a 13 last week. Texas A&M was a 13-point underdog at Georgia. So that gives you, a lot of people are assuming LSU is just going to run over the Bulldogs next week in the SEC Championship. That tells you Vegas only thinks they're about a field goal different.
I got to tell you something. I got to lean toward Texas A&M here. As I did, I had them against Georgia.
Absolutely.
Plus got 13 actually, and they covered. Jimbo Fisher, he's somebody you got to be careful. He is a heck of a coach. He gets his team ready to play. I think Kelly Mond is really having an outstanding season in the back half. LSU's defense is worrying me a little bit.
They're a little shaky.
I think Easy Ed is worried about it as well. But if I had it, I'm not planning on playing it, but if I did, I'd look at Texas A&M plus the points because LSU now has got to find a way to get themselves, of course, over to Atlanta and then on to the championship playoffs. So I don't know where their mind will be, but I'll take the 17.
The number 3 team in the poll, of course, is the Clemson Tigers. They get their big in-state rival, South Carolina, today. In Columbia, they're a 25.5-point favorite over the Gamecocks. How do you see it?
I'm surprised it's only 25.5. Simply because Dabo Swinney, he has been as mad as I've ever seen him this football season because he thinks his football team has been totally disrespected.
Yep.
And he has made that very obvious. And so if he gets an opportunity against an SEC school, and he'll have an opportunity, he'll run it up against Will Muschamp, and then you got to ask yourself, how much longer is South Carolina going to stick with Will Muschamp, even though he got a vote of confidence, which usually is a kiss of death.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just kind of skip over the Georgia game. They're number 4, but Georgia Tech, this is historically a bad Georgia Tech team. So Georgia should have no problem. The interesting thing is the Utah-Oklahoma discussion is now fired up. But, you know, Herb, I was talking to my son in Las Vegas, the sports editor for the Las Vegas Sun. He said that he's talked to some sports books officials because there's actually people that are advocating that Utah or Oklahoma has every right to be there if they win their conference championship more than Alabama. But the guys in the desert say if Utah played Alabama, they would be a 17-point underdog. So that's pretty telltale to me.
Well, all that matters to both Utah and Oklahoma is they're in the mix.
That's right.
They still have a chance. Utah, I think, is a really talented team, especially on defense. And by the way, that's a game I almost used as one of my picks. I think Utah, they've got to run it up. See, we're at the time of the season now. Same thing for Alabama. If they get a chance to blow out Auburn, you got to do it. Clemson's got to win big. Colorado, Utah's got to win big. Same for Oklahoma. Oklahoma, by the way, is one of my win cinch picks.
All right, well, we're going to hear about the Winch cinch right after we come back. We'll have all of our picks on this day. Stay with us. One more segment to go on Talking Sports. Welcome back, everybody. You're tuned to Talking Sports. We're getting you ready for Rivalry Saturday, and it is loaded with great games, including the Iron Bowl. This segment brought to you by M&M Electric, another outstanding sponsor for our show. And like the legend always says, don't get fried. Call M&M Electric. It's not worth trying to do it yourself. I don't mess with any of that electrical. I worry when I'm plugging the stuff in. But I'm not going to call M&M for that. But for any real electrical need, great company, father-son operation. They are the perfect choice if you have electrical work. Give them a call today. Herb, it's time for the meat of the matter, the steak dinner winners. You gave us the Winch cinch last time, and people cashed big. So you're up again. Give us a winner.
Well, I don't like playing chalk, but remember, we're at a time right now where teams have to win and win big. I'll start with Oklahoma. Oklahoma is playing their in-state rival, Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy has really struggled with his defense. Now keep this in mind. His number one quarterback is hurt, will not play in this rivalry game today. His name is Spencer Sanders. He is out, and with him out, their defense just can't stop anybody. They couldn't stop a runny nose. So I got to say, Oklahoma's got to win big. You look at it and say, boy, 14 is big, but Oklahoma scores a lot. Defense is a little suspect too. This is going to be one that will just be high scoring. And at the end of the day, I'll take Oklahoma minus the 14 against Oklahoma State, the Cowboys. My other pick, here's a bonus for you. I like Illinois. They're a 9-point favorite playing at home in Champaign. Lovie Smith has done a marvelous job bringing this team from they're like the Phoenix. They've risen from the ashes, and it's been an amazing run. This team is excited about playing. Northwestern isn't. They're 2-9 coming into this game. Coach Fitzpatrick is thinking about a way to close this thing down. I think they do it today. I think they're just going to show up, go through the motions. Illinois is an exciting team. I think they're going to be excited to beat their in-state rival. I'll take the Illini minus 9 points.
I love it. Here's my three-pack, my trifecta, if you will. I like the Florida Gators. Florida State is just, like you said, they're in the Northwestern mode. They're just kind of playing out the string here, waiting to find out who their new coach is going to be. 17's a lot, but in the swamp, I don't think Florida State's going to put up much resistance. I also like a couple other games here. This is a game, Arizona State, Herb. If you go back and look, every year the team that's supposed to win never does. Arizona's getting 17. Everybody's high on Arizona State because they shocked Oregon last week. But Herm Edwards has been really up and down. This team is 5-6. I like Wildcats. Give me those points. And I like Virginia Tech has really come on. Justin Fuente, a coach that everybody was going, what's going on at Virginia Tech? They've gone not quietly now on a 5-game winning streak, playing really well. They can get in the ACC championship game with a win over Virginia.
He's been rumored for the Arkansas job.
He certainly has.
But not only that, this team is playing extremely well right now. So I think that's a good pick. I like it.
So the Iron Bowl, Herb's leaning Alabama. I probably would take the points, but I just think it's going to be a great game. I can't wait to watch it.
Well, nothing says you've got to bet it.
Nope.
I say just
that's right.
Have you a couple of cool ones, get you some potato chips, sit back and enjoy, and just say, hey, it's going to be what it's going to be. But 4 points, I know a lot of people are thinking, hey, that's a bargain.
Yeah, you'd think.
And it is, because Alabama has been such a favorite in most of their games this year. But again, they're playing at Jordan-Hare, makes it a little bit different animal.
Yeah, we got to go, everybody. Enjoy the games. We'll see you next week.